I have been exiled by my own race. Video by Sloth. Let's check this out. He's essentially coming to us from the perspective of a self-professed, whitewashed, black incel. Now, that's not a reality that I can really relate to experiencing, but I do believe there are some aspects of it that I do relate to. And that's because there was a period of my life where I didn't feel as if I seamlessly integrated into Black American culture as a result of moving from Jamaica at the age of 15. There was some degree of, I felt like a little bit of an outsider. I've always had Black American friends. My closest friends have always been Black. I mean, I've also had very close white friends and Hispanic friends. I had a very diverse friend group in high school, but Black Americans and other Black immigrants have always been a part of the mix. So I've never really felt like completely on the outside, but there is an aspect to it that I did feel like an outsider. But now I don't feel like an outsider at all. I feel very much at home within the Black American space while still feeling very much at home within amongst Jamaicans. And I think I would feel very much at home around Africans as well. And that's because the solution to the disconnect that I feel that a lot of Black young men, such as this guy, it may feel with other Black people, really is more of an internal thing than it having anything to do with the people that make up these Black groups, whether you're talking Black Americans, Black Caribbean people, Black Africans. I truly believe any person truly at peace with their identity of being a Black person can effortlessly be comfortable around any kind or any group of Black people, regardless of their cultural heritage. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this.
Okay, right now, I want to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a reject within your own race.
Damn.
You see, in my opinion, I feel like if you are a Black man who is non-stereotypical, your life is going to feel like a curse.
Wow.
It is easier to exist in this world as a Black guy who fits into the stereotype. And I believe that's the case because within the Black community, if you do not adhere to the prescriptive ideas of what it means to be a Black person, you're going to be tortured everywhere you go. Because
now, I think that is a gross oversimplification. Just take a look at 10 of the biggest Black YouTubers that you can think of, or just 10 prominent Black YouTubers that you can think of around the same age range. And you will notice, more than likely, they're all very different, right? I'm not the same as a Kai Cenat, not the same as an RDC World, not the same as a Duke Dennis, Flatboy Max, a Corey Kenshin, a Daquan Wiltshire, a Caleb City. I think all of these personalities are very different and more than likely we would not have all hung out with each other in high school. You feel me? Yet, I think all of those people that I just mentioned are authentically Black and comfortable in their Blackness. So this idea that unless you're trying to be the hood archetype, which is what he's going to put forth here, that is the only way to feel like you are comfortable in your Blackness and amongst Black people. I believe that just does not reflect reality.
Everywhere you go, Black people are going to view you and see you as an outsider. You're going to be labeled as whitewashed or an Uncle T, if you catch my drift, or they're going to call you a raccoon, just simply due to the fact that you do not conform to their idea of what it means to be Black.
Now, that's not true. Whitewashed, maybe you could reasonably make that argument to an extent, but to be a raccoon, to be an Uncle Tom, those labels are reserved for Black people who are anti-Black. You could be the most whitewashed Black dude in America. That is not going to make you a raccoon or an Uncle Tom.
I never understood that. How is a Black person supposed to act? How is a Black person supposed to be, talk? What is a Black guy supposed to listen to? Like, growing up, I always felt opposite to what they told me Black was. So in my mind, I never felt attached to my race, or I never felt attached enough to my race to make my entire personality and identity my skin color. So for the longest time, I've always viewed myself as a brain occupying a meat sack or inhabiting a meat sack or a vessel, pretty much.
So you see, he doesn't identify with being a black person. He doesn't see himself as a black person. He sees himself as a consciousness that has been cursed to dwell within a black body.
And that has caused me a lot of alienation because I would go over family members' houses and they will all just be dancing at a barbecue or listening to, you know, hip hop songs or R&B songs.
Dope.
And I always felt secluded because
why?
I was never into that. I don't hate that culture, but when it came to like black culture or like hood culture or street culture,
bro, there is no such thing as not being into Whitney Houston. There's no such thing as not being into Michael Jackson. There is no such thing as not thinking Jimi Hendrix shreds. I'm not saying that you got to become super fans of this kind of shit, but you can't listen to that shit. I don't think it's possible for you to listen to that shit and be like, ugh, you know what I mean? Again, I'm not saying you had to be like, oh yeah, I want to listen to this shit in my own free time at home. But he's almost sounding as if he was repulsed by that stuff, which I think has more to do with his disconnect with being black than it has to do with this stuff just being that bad.
I never felt attached to it. I was always into alternative things. The music I listened to was alternative. The way I dressed was very alternative. My hobbies and interests were all different from what black people took to.
Right.
So,
which tells us that that's how he was programmed from a very young age. From a very young age, he was already being put down that path of being more into white culture than black culture.
You can imagine all that did was just label me in their minds as a traitor, you know, and that's so unfortunate, man, because, you know, black people love to talk about how other races treat them badly and how everyone hates black people. We're so tortured by the world and we're victims, and they always fail to acknowledge how black people destroy other black people. And it's like when you do bring that up, they either brush past it quickly or they just invalidate your experience. Because in most black people's minds, racism or hatred or discrimination only matters when it's coming from a white person.
No, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. But you can't call it racism just because people think you're weird. That's not being racist. They don't think you're weird because you're black, because they have black friends, obviously.
What black people have been indoctrinated to think. They think that black on black hatred or black on black bullying or black on black violence doesn't matter that much. You know, it's like, that's why I don't talk to anyone IRL about this. Because
you know, I've always hated bullying. It doesn't matter who is getting bullied. I've never been a fan of bullies, man. So trust me, I'm one black person who's against you being bullied for not fitting in.
It's going to be an endless argument.
And I know there are plenty of others.
And I'm tired of arguing. This video was not to preach self-hate. I'm not making this so you can, you know, be on my side. I'm just trying to share my experience because I'm tired of black people being hypocrites, you know. So it's just I don't know, it's backwards to me. It's so backwards. But yeah, man, my experience as a black outsider was just very brutal. Growing up, going to inner city schools, black kids would pick on me every single day. The black boys would physically assault me and call me names and just bully me every day. And It got to a point to where I had to defend myself so much that I was always getting sent to the principal's office because I was always getting into fights, you know, and it was just so unfair that I had to go through that treatment. And when it came to black girls, they were very open and vocal about how they felt about me.
Really?
And it was always negative. They always told me how ugly I was. They always told me that I was a lame. You know, they told me I was a loser because I didn't wear Jordans. I didn't wear Nikes. I didn't care about Chief Keef or whatever rapper was popular during that time. You know what I mean? Like, it's so brutal because I was just trying to exist as a normal kid. And I was always lumped into, you know, just some social war or like some identity war. And I didn't care about that stuff. Like, even growing up, I never cared about looking nice. I never cared about dressing like a hood kid. Like, all of the hood kids wore the same exact, like, they all dressed the same. Every hood kid wore Jordans, some type of polo t-shirt or Aeropostale or Hollister, or they wore True Religion jeans because, I went to school I was in middle school in like the mid 2010s or like
Okay.
early 2010s.
Early
So like that was the
2010s,
style back in the
okay.
day,
So I was in high school when he was in middle school.
Hollister, Aeropostale, all of those like name brand clothing, companies or whatever.
Okay.
And even till this day, I am a
So
very
he's probably in his early 20s.
minimalistic person. I have one pair of shoes. They're Converses. I don't care about anything. Like, I thrift my
He
clothes.
doesn't care about looking good. That's a you problem, not to be mean, but in the sense of like, it's not a black thing to look good. Everybody, all races, you're going to have people who care about the way that they look, and then you have people who don't. And, okay, all right.
I don't care about wearing designer clothing, but
The point I'm making is there are plenty of black people who don't really care about fashion that much, who are very comfortable with their blackness and around other black people and fitting just fine with black people. They're just the dude in the friend group who has the least drip. Every friend group got a friend who got the least drip. You know what I'm saying?
not to drag it out, but yeah, that's what all the kids would tease me about because I was just so different. And it just made my high school experience and my middle school experience a living nightmare. But it's funny because when I attended a predominantly white school or a predominantly Hispanic school,
Sure.
I never faced bullying.
Of course.
I never had to fight a white person. I never fought a Hispanic person. The most I could say was that I was still invisible.
Now notice this. He's been to 3 different schools, apparently, between middle school and high school. He's been to an all-black school, or a predominantly black school, a predominantly white school, and a predominantly Hispanic school, according to him. Which tells us what? That he has moved around a lot. Which tells us what? That his father is probably in the military.
I was still a loser, but at least
And the military and the police force is very effective at whitewashing black people. Doesn't do it to all of them, obviously, but many of them do become your Brandon Tatums, your Officer Tatums, and things of that nature.
I was not getting picked on every single day. You know what I mean? But it's slightly different when it came to the Hispanic school, because when I went to a predominantly Hispanic school, I was more accepted. And it's weird like that.
Interesting.
Like growing up for me, I always had a love for Mexican people or just Hispanic people in general, because from a young age, I was exposed to Mexican culture because my dad was dating a Mexican girl for a couple of years.
Okay, another piece of evidence there. His dad was dating a Mexican woman. Okay.
And she would bring us around her family, and her family would...
Now, that also, it's not a condemnation or a death sentence. I'm not saying that you can't be a black man and date outside of your race, but it can oftentimes be reflective of somebody who is not into black chicks. And when you're a black guy and you're not into black chicks, that's something interesting to note right there.
Embrace me, and they used to show me how they, cooked, and they showed me how their culture was from a very young age. I was exposed to Mexican culture. And growing up, I always had a love for Mexican people because of that, because they always showed me love and they always respected me. And it was different, I felt more connected to them than I did to black people,
Okay.
And it's funny, too, because even Mexican girls...
Now, I imagine, but how is that different than you experiencing that with your black family? Like in the beginning of this story, talking about the cookouts and the dancing, and they're playing R&B and hip hop. How was that any different than when you experienced it from this Mexican girlfriend that your dad was dating? That tells me it's a possibility it has more to do with your relationship with black culture, and thus how you then interpret what's going on when your family is hanging out versus your relationship with anything non-black, any culture that's non-black. You feel me? You view it through a more rose-colored lens.
Were nicer to me. I'll never forget when I was like 16, like one of the because I mean, it's no surprise I'm still like single. I never had a girlfriend, but
Right.
one of the only girls in my life who actually found me to be attractive was like this Hispanic girl when I was 16. And, I'm like a mental cell slash like, I am sub 5, but I am still like a mental cell. But
A mental cell.
I never talked to her, right? I was I don't know, I was too in my own head at the time. I thought that no one could find me attractive, but supposedly I was told that this Hispanic girl called me cute or whatever, but I didn't believe whoever told me that anyway. But yeah, but that never happened with black girls. Black girls never told me I was attractive,
The universe will only reflect back to you what you believe to be true. So if you already have these hangups about black people and black women, then yeah, that will be your experience when it comes to black women finding you attractive. If you think black women are just never going to be into a guy like you, well, then that is the reality you will experience. Here's what never happens. The guy who thinks that he could never pull a supermodel and then a supermodel walks up to him and is like, I think you're so handsome. Can we go on a date? That has never happened in the history of ever. So if you already believe that, then that's what you're going to experience. That's just when you get down to the brass tacks, man.
About women. It's not just about girls. I'm just saying like they didn't judge me because I feel like other races and other cultures don't have the same standards as black people. Black people have the standard that if you're not some street person, you're just not cool at all. Whereas I know there are Mexican gangs, I know there are like hood white people as well, but it's not the same thing. I feel like black people play street culture at the forefront. They make that the main focal point of black culture. Like, you could disagree all you want, but that's really true. I swear to goodness that's true.
No, well, again, I am going to disagree because I have never at any point in my life tried to project that I am some black person from the ghetto where I grew up in the hoods of America. But like I said, I feel very comfortable amongst all kinds of black people, and I feel very welcomed by all kinds of black people. So that's just not reality that you have to be hood. The reality is the grand majority of black people are not from the hood in America. The grand majority of black people are not living in poverty. And so it's ridiculous to say that you gotta act like you're from the hood in order to fit in with black people, and most black people aren't from the hood.
Look up every black person who's rich in this world, in this society. Most of them are going to be rappers, or they're going to be some form of a stereotype. And you can't
That's subjective.
argue with that.
But the most visible, wealthy black people, yes, are entertainers, no doubt.
Like, all you see is that in your community. Like, go to any black community, you will always see black people portraying the stereotype. And most likely those people have a greater time within the black race. Like, they're always going to be more accepted. Like, white kids even want to, copy ghetto black people. You don't see black...
Again, calling him ghetto, another sign that he is completely disconnected from his blackness.
Kids trying to copy Neil deGrasse Tyson or Basquiat. You see black kids and white kids trying to imitate NBA Youngboy or Chief Keef or King Von. Like, that's how it is. So I know there's some truth to what I'm saying, right? And I'm not the only black guy, or I'm not the only black person who has experienced what it's like to be an outsider. I have watched so many videos of black people experiencing the same exact things as me, and they also talked about it. And I watched and I read like posts on forums about black people and their experiences as well. So yeah, it's a thing that no one likes to talk about. It's always going to be the elephant in the room. So it's best for you to just, I don't know, man, just seclude yourself. That's what I did.
Wow.
I started to just seclude myself from black people because it's like, I kid you not, man. Everywhere I go, it's the same treatment. I lived in a lot of states, man. I lived in a lot of fucking states. And
Again, he's lived in a lot of fucking states. Another sign that his father is in the military.
Single time, it's like black people just notice. It's like black people can tell that I'm different, or they can tell I'm an outsider because they just treat me so weird. Like, it's just so...
Well, you treat them as outsiders. You don't see each other as the same, you and them. So you're going to get back what you put out.
Unfair, man. And I did have
The more you come to embrace your blackness and subsequently other black people, the more friendly black people will become to you. But it's not because they're changing. Obviously, it's because you're changing.
couple of like black acquaintances in school, but they were always autistic or like neurodivergent, which I liked because I realized
Autistic
that
kids,
the
all right.
autistic slash neurodivergent black kids, they were all cool. They were all nerds just like me. They liked the same things I liked. And most of the time, they were picked on just like I was picked on as well, you know? So, yeah, so those were the only black kids who I took to.
Okay.
But all of the other black kids were so focused on fitting in and trying to gain the acceptance of total strangers. And that concept never made sense to me. I always thought it was trivial to seek validation from kids that you're not going to remember 10 years down the line. Like
Everybody is trying to fit into somewhere. Everyone is trying to fit into somewhere, man. You know what I'm saying? Life is about people. Remove all the people off of the planet. Is life now worth living? It's not, isn't it? Life is about people. And so this cope of, there's something immature or superficial about wanting other people to like you. Now, of course, being desperate for validation, that's a bad thing. I agree with that. But we need community, man. We all desire community. Literally, if you could wake up tomorrow with the keys to a mansion, Ferraris in your garage, millions of dollars, all the food you can eat, but if there is nobody else on the planet to enjoy it with, it is all for nothing. It is all meaningless. It is all empty because life is about people.
no one's going to care that you came to school with the newest Jordans in 10 plus years. You know, I always thought that was meaningless. And I'm not saying that to sound like I'm above people or that I'm smarter than people. To me, it's so trivial to seek acceptance from human beings. It really is to me. But school aside, even within my own family, I'm treated like a black outsider or an outsider in general. Like, I'll never forget when my older brother told me that I'm not like him. And he told me that me and him have nothing in common. One time he told me that he felt more close to our cousins, or he felt like our cousin was more of a brother to him than I was. You know, he also said that he felt like his friends were more of a brother to him than I was. And that was brutal for me. At the time, I cared so much. I was deeply affected by that.
Wow,
because
that's really sad, man. Something tells me, though, this is a half brother. Something tells me this is a half brother.
I don't know how many of you out there have an older brother, but for me, for the longest time, I have always looked up to my older brother, but he always rejected me and
That
he
sucks,
always
though.
hated me.
I'm
So I
sorry
never
about
got
that,
that.
though. I'm sorry about that. And if he always hated you, that probably means that he doesn't like you because you are the product of a relationship that he perceives as the reason why his parents aren't still together. That's a reality. And again, I'm just speculating here based off of personal experience and things that I've witnessed up close, because that's not normal for a brother, just because you're into different shit, for him to straight up hate you. Now, he might think you're a square. He might think you're lame. He might not want to hang out with you, but to straight up hate you, there's something else going on there. And that's the unfortunate thing with this testimony, is there's so many missing pieces. It's harder to really figure out what's going on with this guy. But ultimately, at the end of this, I think I can offer some solution that will help him out and any other young black person who feels disconnected from their blackness, who feels like they don't fit in with other black people. Regardless of where you fall on the spectrum, I have a solution for you.
Acceptance from my older brother that I craved, you know? And I know I'm kind of like contradicting myself because I was just talking about acceptance, but I feel like it is different to seek acceptance from family, you know, versus a stranger. So it's kind of different, but I still contradicted myself. I'll keep myself, honest. I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
bro, because everybody wants to be accepted.
But anyway, but yeah, so yeah, my brother would treat me like an outsider. And even in like family conversations, every time we had a family conversation and I tried to voice my opinion about something, you could just tell no one respected what I had to say. And it really made me stop talking. And I would seclude myself from my family. And now that I have my own apartment, I do not contact my family at all.
Wow.
And I don't try to go
Damn.
to any family outing or cookout anymore because I always sit there by myself, just faking every interaction, and they always treat me like Tyrion Lannister or something, like they treat me like I'm adopted pretty much. So I just gave up. I gave up, man. I gave up. It's meaningless for me to try to do anything with my family at this point because they always are going to view me as someone who does not belong. But that's the struggle when you're black. And I'm pretty sure the same thing
Well, it's not the struggle when you're black.
goes for
I think there's a lot more going on here, but
many
all
of
right.
you. Just because
He's blaming it all on his blackness, which I just don't think is the answer.
you guys may be non-black, it does not mean that you're still not a reject within your own community. So, I can only speak from the perspective of a guy who happens to be black. So that's what I try to do right now. But I may make a part two. I don't know. But this was something I wanted to get off my chest. That's really about it. Take care.
Yeah, man, that sucks. I really do feel for this guy. It's shitty that he got bullied in school. Even if he embellished the account, I'm sure he's not completely fabricating that. But there is clearly some anti-blackness going on here in his mind. And the fact that he's basically saying that there is literally not a single aspect of black culture that he witnessed from family members at a young age that seemed appealing to him or cool to him or anything of that nature. Honestly, that just tells me he didn't have much of that as a young person. I think this is what I think's happening with this guy, right? I think he is a son of someone in the military who's moved around a lot. His father himself also probably not someone who really identifies with his blackness. And so he wasn't really being exposed to black culture or being fed a positive narrative about black people or black culture when he was at home. And so the 1 to 3 times a year, he probably ended up going to some kind of family function where he's around a lot of his other black relatives. He felt very much out of place. Now, obviously, he also has some personality things going on where he just struggles to fit in. The fact that he found himself making friends with the autistic kids and other kids like that in school, that means there's also probably something going on there as well. But from the way he's speaking, he doesn't sound like the kind of guy who is incapable of making friends with neurotypical people. I've had a few friends that were a little off. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? We were cool. I would see them in school and, show them love. And some guys are a little different, man. It's not a big deal. But let's just get to the meat and potatoes. Let's get to the solution. And this is not just coming from theory. This is coming from my own personal experience. Because like I said at the beginning of the video, I've never felt like an outsider, a complete outsider to Black American culture or Black culture as a whole in general. But I also can recognize that I wasn't fully integrated. I wasn't fully just with both arms grabbing Black culture and being like, I'm Black and I love my Blackness. And that was directly related to my misconceptions about Black people and Black culture in general. It was directly tied to how much white supremacy poisoning I had in my mind about the Black community and Black culture and why the negative aspects of Black culture are the way that they are. So for instance, and the key to that is loving Black people. You have to love Black people. You have to love Black culture. You have to, just love everything about being Black. You take the bad with the good, understanding that the good greatly outweighs the bad. There's nothing where you're not going to have a pros and cons list. And the key to achieving that is studying Black history. That is it. The more you learn about your people and their history, the more the white supremacist programming will be undone. The more you will realize that a lot of the negative stereotypes or the negative characteristics that we can find in the Black community are not reflective of any intrinsic flaws with Black people or Black culture, but rather is a logical outcome of what happened to these people throughout history. So for instance, let's take what is perceived as hypersexuality in amongst Black Americans. Now, this is partly a myth because you can go to any club in any diverse area in America and you're going to see Black chicks shaking ass, you're going to see white chicks shaking ass, you're going to see Hispanic chicks shaking ass. So there is an aspect of that that is exaggerated for the sake of, again, demonizing Black women and Black people. But let's think about why in the Black community, women like Sexy Red and Glorilla and Nicki Minaj are put on a pedestal and made celebrities and admired by a lot of Black women. And the same goes for rappers and athletes. Well, a lot of that is grounded in the fact that there was a time in this country where if you wanted to break into a different level of wealth, right? If you wanted to do better than just the scraps that white supremacy was willing to give Black people, just, tolerate the scraps. There were very few avenues that you could go down. You couldn't become a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant and think you were going to make big money as a Black person pre the 1960s. Not only did you not have access to many of the universities that were there to give you that training, and you also had the lack of resources and capital that you need to get a business started, for instance. There were really only two avenues that you could go down as a Black person pre the 1960s if you wanted to make a lot of money, and that was either entertainment or crime. That was it. And so when people dreamed about making it out of the hood, you didn't have community college as much of an option. You didn't have student aid, financial aid for you. You come from a poor, you just didn't have those options, man. You had to bet you better be able to dribble a basketball or throw a baseball or rap or sing. Really, it was singing. Rapping didn't really become much of an option until later on. And so if it feels like white people and white culture affords its young people more options in regards to what avenues you can go down that are celebrated by the public, well, that's because that is the reality, or it was the reality for a very long time. It's only very recently that more Black people have more options. But that is also another piece of white supremacist propaganda to try and make Black people seem like we're stupid, that, white people, they're idolizing doctors and lawyers, and Black people, we're low IQ and we only like entertainment and instant gratification. And so that's why we only pedestalize athletes and actors. Go and look at all the most followed white people on the planet. All of the most followed white people are entertainers. This is across the board. The most followed white people are not doctors. They're not lawyers. They're not typically politicians, unless you're a guy like Donald Trump, who was an entertainer. That's how he got his fame, is by being an entertainer. They're not even white billionaires, unless you're a guy like Elon Musk. For the most part, all of the most popular white people, the most celebrated white people are also entertainers, just like in the Black community. And so that is, again, the bias of white supremacy, blinding you to the realities in other races, but being hypercritical of your own race. But you also have to undo a lot of the racist brainwashing that has filled your head with lies. Like, for instance, that Black people are abnormally violent and abnormally sexually driven and perverted, right? The archetype of the Black rapist man that is going to try and rape white women. That was, of course, propaganda going all the way back to the abolition of slavery, thanks to movies like The Birth of America, where a Black man is portrayed as This guy that's, he went and raped white women is just all fictional. They've burnt down entire black cities off of false allegations of rape by white women. It's a part of the white supremacist playbook that goes back forever. But here's the reality of the situation. For instance, pedophilia and child molestation happens far more often in the white community than the black community. How does that make you feel? Did you know that 8 out of 10 white people that are killed in this country are killed by white people? You hear a lot about black on black crime, but the reality is violence is intraracial. This is not abnormal for the black community that most black people that are victims of murder are murdered by black people. This is true across the board with all races, but particularly with white Americans. And so from that, you can see we're not that different, at least when it comes to that. Now, I don't do that to try and turn white people into boogeymen. I'm just trying to show you that you have a warped perception of white people, of Hispanic people, and of black people. You idolize these other races and are overly critical of your own race. But it's not enough to just dispel your modern misconceptions about black people and black Americans, but you also need to go back and read the history and see how black people got here. Start at the beginning. Start with slavery. The first book I would recommend you read is American Slavery, 1619 to 1877 by Peter Clokin. The next book I would recommend that you read is Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, written by Harriet Jacobs. This is an autobiography of a slave girl, a girl who escaped slavery to the North, learned how to read, learned how to write, and then wrote her story. To truly understand why black people are where we are in America at this point in history, you must understand where black Americans had to start. The next book you should read is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. If you get this information into your head, it will undo the white supremacist programming that is affecting you and creating this hatred and this disdain that you have for black people. And the last book I'm going to recommend is Randall Robinson's The Debt What America Owes to Blacks. This was actually the first book that I read in my awakening to the realities of the history of black people, especially black Americans. So I suppose if you only read one book, you could make this the book. However, I do really think that information in those other books is incredibly valuable. But this book also has a lot of historical information and walks you through. You get a little bit of everything. You get a little bit of African history in this book. You get a little bit of black American slavery history, Jim Crow, all of that. It's interwoven as this guy is also simultaneously making the argument for reparations, which is the main thrust of this book. And without buying any Jordans, without getting any tattoos, without growing dreads, without adding any young boy to your playlist, without changing anything about the way you live your life, by just receiving this information, you are going to grow to love black people and be proud of your blackness and stop seeing yourself as a person who happens to be black and with both arms fully and completely embrace the fact that you're black. You're going to find yourself fitting in a lot more easily without having to change your hobbies or your interests or who you are as a person. But don't be surprised if all of a sudden a lot of this shit, this black shit that you just weren't into, all of a sudden you find it starts to look cool to you. But that's all I really have to say concerning this topic. I hope that this helped you or helped somebody. I know it's going to, especially if you made it to this part in the video. Clearly you got some value out of it. So thank you for watching, and until next time, peace out.